working class neighborhoods in Dublin during the Irish Civil War. They're they're kind of what are described as sort of black comedies or tragic comedies. So very, very biting, very, very funny. They're beautiful productions, and I highly recommend checking out at least one of them. You don't have to see all three to actually understand that each play stands alone, and we will present each play on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. And then on Saturday, if you want to see all three of them, you can come to the Power Center and see all three in one day. And then the last theater piece I'll talk about is Things Hidden Since the Foundation of the World, which takes about an hour to explain. I won't try to do that here. It's a young British Iranian theater maker that we know very, very well. His name is Javad Alipour. That's him right there. He is a sensational young theater maker based in Manchester, England. Loves to really play with theater works that deal with the with modern in 2020. This piece is really all about sort of the deep dives that we all go into on the internet, trying to look for facts and looking for truth. And it's based on a very tragic murder of a famous Iranian singer who was effectively exiled from Iran. He was critical of the regime in the 1970s and lived in Germany and was murdered. And the piece is kind of a deep dive about what happened to him, but it's really a deep dive on how we all find information today. So it talks a lot about Wikipedia, a lot about podcasting, and it's kind of a mishmash of a lot of different things, but I can tell you it's very, very smart, very funny, and really, really compelling. So that's in November. And then last, I'll talk about dance quickly, and then I'll get out of your way today. We have a few dance offerings this year, the most famous of which is bringing back the Martha Graham Dance Company, one of the great contemporary companies in America. This is February 17th and 18th at the Power Center. Going to be performing some of the really historic, great choreography from Martha Graham, but also some new work that they're bringing, and it's always a pleasure to have them. They'll be here over 2 days. They'll do a schools concert for K through 12 students here while they're here, and they're just an absolute pleasure to have anytime. And then in March, what I think is one of the real highlights of our season, we are presenting the Batsheva Dance Company. They're based in Tel Aviv in Israel. This is really, to my mind, the top contemporary dance company in the world. It's very, very cutting edge. They are really, really incredibly talented. It's one of the most competitive companies as a dancer to enter into in the world. Their artistic director, Ohad Naharin, is really kind of a legendary figure now in the dance community. And so what's exciting about this, it's always exciting to have Batsheva do anything for your series. They're doing a new work called Momo, and we're not doing it here in Ann Arbor, we're doing it in collaboration with the Detroit Opera and presenting it at the Detroit Opera House. So that's happening on March 23 and 24. I know we'll have buses for at least one of those performances, knowing that sometimes driving anywhere in March could be challenging. So it's exciting for us to have them here as a company. It's exciting for us to be collaborating in Detroit once again. And if any of you saw the Swan Lake presentation that we presented in Detroit last year, it was really, really wonderful to present large-scale dance in the Detroit Opera House. It's really a special place. Works very, very well. And then lastly, I'll just say that digital, since the pandemic, continues to be something that we focus on because just like you, we know we need to keep in contact with people. So we had this great project a few years ago that we created with actor Wendell Pierce. We continue to make kind of what we call digital first content. What we learned in the pandemic about digital programming is that just broadcasting or streaming a live performance doesn't really attract much attention. People don't see it as much, they don't see it as a replacement for going to a live performance. And that's actually really good news for us because we need them to come to live performances. So what we learned was, don't try to create a live performance and stream it. Create a digital performance that creates specifically for the digital space. So you can see here, we did a multi-camera shoot of a solo organ recital. This is a fabulous organist that came through last season. And we just, we're at the Ipsy Freight House, and we just filmed a beautiful piece the other night with Marcus Elliott. So we're making digital pieces, but we're making digital pieces specifically for the digital space, not to replace live performance. And then the last thing I'll just talk about briefly is our learning engagement piece, which is hugely important to us. We do K through 12 performances each and every year. Someone just said to me the other day how wonderful it is to have an entire Hill Auditorium full of quiet K through 12 students. And I was like, have you ever been to a K through 12 performance? But the energy is palpable. It's wonderful to have kids, and we bring them to theater works, to dance works, to musical works. It's a great privilege to do that for the K through 12 piece. University-based, we do a huge array of stuff, including some, what I think is kind of one of the most magical things. This is the principal bassist of the Berlin Philharmonic giving a bass masterclass when they were here back in November. Those kind of opportunities for the University of Michigan students to work closely with the highest level artists, I think that's something that UMS does better than anyone. We do outside dance workshops. This is in Riverside Park in Ypsi, which we've continued to do during the pandemic and then beyond the pandemic. And then who here has heard about what UMS is doing in Ypsilanti at the Freight House? A few folks? How many of you have gone so far? Okay. Norm, thank you. He's a board member, so he'd have to raise his hand. So let me just say a quick word and then I'll wrap up. What we're doing in Ypsilanti is very, very different than what UMS has normally done. We had gone into Ypsi a couple of times and presented small events at the Ypsilanti Freight House, but we are spending 4 weeks in September and 4 weeks in April and curating activities really based on feedback that we're getting from the Ypsilanti community from the very get-go. So we didn't come in, normally what we would do as an arts organization is rent 4 weeks of the Freight House and then come charging in and say, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. We didn't do that. What we said to the community was, we want you to help us decide what we bring here, and we want you to let us know what's important to you. And so they did that. And so we are presenting a huge array of things, from live music with yoga to a beautiful performance this last week with Marcus Elliott and the jazz ensemble, a new piece that was created ruminating on the history of the Black community in Ypsilanti. So it's a huge range of things that we're presenting, lots of work for families. We've got a fantastic troupe from Chicago called Manual Cinema coming not this weekend, but next weekend in Ypsilanti. So know that this is something super important for us, and we're really learning as an organization how to work in different ways in a community like Ypsi. So that's really what I wanted to tell you about. Probably, I don't think I was short. So I'm pretty sure that didn't qualify as short. But any questions? I kind of raced through everything, and my apologies today, but any questions about, yes, Dallas?
Thank you. Well, I got a question and a comment. I'll make the comment first. I want to state the obvious. You know, Ann Arbor is all about excellence, if you think about it. And I moved here 20 years ago, and a very big part of why I wanted to and why I love it so much here is UMS's excellence, world-class excellence in the arts. And I thank you.
Thank you.
I just wonder how digitization is working. I get the impression, whether it's New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or whether it's jazz musicians trying to figure out how to make a living, it's easy to put it on. You've already alluded to that. A lot of people are struggling with it. I wonder how you're doing and what's working and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly complicated question for us and for any organization in the arts. And then you've talked about other genres like jazz and other art, other parts of the arts. There's no simple answer for it. And I would say that even during the pandemic, what we were really clear about, and in some ways maybe was slightly controversial internally, we didn't see digital as a way to monetize what we were making or what we were streaming. And we know that there are organizations who do monetize and have had some success. but I will tell you, there are not very many. And we saw it much more as an opportunity to provide a resource to people during the pandemic, for sure. We saw it as an opportunity to provide a resource to people, when we were all sort of locked up in our homes. And the arts were incredibly important, I think, for people during the pandemic. It was the constant in the equation, I think, for people staying connected. So we didn't think of it from the very beginning as something that would make us money. We were just going to invest in it. So that was number one. The second thing is what I said a minute ago, which is that we found out pretty quickly that if you just wanted to stream something that was going to be happening live, it's not that there isn't value there. I think there is, but I don't know how much. It's not a substitute for live performance, and thank goodness that it isn't. I was sort of joking about that a minute ago, but that is actually a huge takeaway, which is that people still want to be with one another. They want to come together and experience a performance and an artistic moment together. And that's true whether, it's the Philadelphia Orchestra or Taylor Swift. Thankfully, the Philadelphia Orchestra is a lot less expensive. But we as humans are sort of bound by that. So where does that leave the digital piece? For us, it means that we want to create things that make sense to have as a digital product. So I mentioned Marcus Elliott, the great jazz saxophonist based here in Ann Arbor and Detroit. He wrote this whole piece about famous members of the Ypsilanti Black community and told their stories, and there were these musical vignettes, and it was really amazing. I mean, truly, truly amazing. They performed on Friday and Saturday night, but on Thursday night, before they'd even performed it, we got them in the Freight House and we filmed them. It was a 7-camera 4K shoot with good quality audio. In some ways, we wanted to just document the piece, but as it turns out, we're really happy that we have it now because we're going to be able to release that in January, coming up after we've edited and polished it all up. So that'll be something that we can offer to our audiences on an ongoing basis. At the end of the day, if we're not all using digital to bring people to us in some way, shape, or form, I think we've missed the mark, because the reality is the music business writ large hasn't really figured out how to monetize streaming properly. And so I think the arts need to be realistic about what they may be able to do, but also be opportunistic about what you can do to sort of interest people in what's happening. And if you can use digital to kind of pull back the curtain and show them something that they wouldn't have been able to see otherwise, that I think somehow strengthens the connection and hopefully leads them to want to come to something live. I'm not sure that's a good answer, but that's what I got. Yes, sir, in the back.
Can you leave us with any tantalizing hints as to what you are possibly planning for the 150th year?
Oh my gosh. Let's just say that we have been already talking to some artists now saying, we're going to be 150 in 28, 29. So can you be sure to keep that in mind, and as we talk over the next few years, that you set aside time for us. So I don't know if I'm gonna tell you who exactly. Here's how we're thinking about it. We know that there will be a lot of things that we can do that's special in that year, but I'm trying to have us think about it as a 5-year trajectory to that space. So I will share one thing